Between 1971 and 1972, 6 young girls vanished from the streets of Washington, D.C. Their bodies were found dumped along highways like discarded trash. The killer was never caught. But what's even more disturbing is that one of his victims was forced to call home while in captivity, and another was made to write a note to police before she died. This is the story of the Freeway Phantom. Washington, D.C., in the early 1970s, was a city divided. While politicians debated in marble buildings, young African-American families in neighborhoods like Congress Heights and Anacostia lived in a different reality. It was here, in these overlooked communities, that a predator began to hunt. April 25, 1971. A Sunday evening. 13-year-old Carol Spinks was running a simple errand, buying groceries from a 7-Eleven just 7 blocks from her home. She never made it back. When Carol didn't return home, her family immediately knew something was wrong. This wasn't like her. Police were called, but the response was lukewarm at best. Just another runaway, they assumed. Just another black girl from Southeast D.C. 6 days later, her body was discovered on Interstate 295, near the Maryland border. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Her shoes were missing, but her body had been carefully laid out, almost posed. Investigators found something else disturbing. Her body was remarkably clean, as if she'd been washed after death. The autopsy revealed she'd been held alive for several days before being murdered. 2 months passed. Then, on July 8, 1971, 16-year-old Darlenia Johnson disappeared while heading to her summer job at Oxon Hill Recreation Center. She was last seen getting off a bus. But here's where this case takes a chilling turn. While Darlenia was missing, her family received a phone call. It was Darlenia's voice, shaky, terrified. She said a white man had picked her up and that she was in Virginia. Then the line went dead. The call has never been traced. The family never heard from her again. 10 days after her disappearance, Darlenia's body was found on the side of Route 202. Like Carol, she had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Like Carol, her body appeared to have been washed. And like Carol, she had been kept alive for days before being killed. The pattern was unmistakable. Washington, D.C. had a serial killer. Investigators began connecting the dots. Both girls were young and African American. Both were taken in broad daylight or early evening from busy areas. Both were held captive before being murdered. Both bodies were disposed of near highways. And both showed signs of being washed post-mortem. The killer was organized, careful, and he wasn't done. July 27, 1971. Just 19 days after Darlenia's body was found, 10-year-old Brenda Crockett left her home to visit a friend nearby. She was the youngest victim yet, but Brenda did something that gave investigators their biggest lead. While in captivity, she managed to call home. Her family answered the phone to hear little Brenda's voice saying she was being held by a white man in a house with a dog barking in the background. She described the room she was in. Then, chillingly, a man's voice could be heard in the background saying, "Hang up the phone." The call ended. That would be the last time anyone heard Brenda Crockett's voice. Hours later, her body was found on a grass embankment along Route 202, the same road where Darlenia was found. The city was gripped by fear, but the killings continued. On October 1, 1971, 12-year-old Nenomoshia Yates vanished while walking home from a Safeway. Her body was found within hours on Pennsylvania Avenue. Then came the victim who would leave behind the most haunting evidence. November 15, 1971. 18-year-old Brenda Woodard was abducted. When her body was found the next day, investigators discovered something in her pocket, a handwritten note. The note read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can." The handwriting was shaky, clearly written under duress. Experts determined it was Brenda's handwriting, but the words were dictated by her killer. He had forced her to write his message to the police, mocking them, before taking her life. It was signed with unusual phrasing and contained the word tantamount, a word that suggested the killer was educated and articulate. This wasn't random violence. This was someone intelligent, organized, and deeply disturbed. The Freeway Phantom task force was formed. Hundreds of tips poured in. Police investigated potential suspects, including a green Chevrolet seen near several abduction sites. They looked into law enforcement officers, military personnel, and anyone who might have access to victims and knowledge of the area. One suspect emerged, A D.C. police officer was questioned after witnesses reported seeing him with one of the victims. But there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. And then, as mysteriously as the killings began, they stopped. September 5, 1972. 17-year-old Diane Williams disappeared after visiting her boyfriend. Her body was found the next day on Interstate 295. She would be the last known victim of the Freeway Phantom. After Diane, the murders stopped completely. No more bodies were found. No more girls went missing with the same pattern. Had the killer died? Been imprisoned for another crime? Simply moved away? Or was he still there, watching, having just decided to stop? Despite extensive investigations, despite the phone calls, despite the note, the Freeway Phantom was never identified. The case went cold. What makes this case even more tragic is how it was handled. While missing white children made national headlines, these 6 black girls barely registered in the media. Their families fought for attention, for resources, for justice, but their voices were drowned out by indifference. Investigators later admitted that racial bias played a role in the initial response to the disappearances. By the time authorities took the threat seriously, multiple girls were already dead. Today, more than 50 years later, the Freeway Phantom case remains open. DNA technology has advanced, but any evidence collected in the 1970s has degraded or been lost. Theories abound. Was it a single killer or multiple perpetrators? Was the Freeway Phantom connected to other unsolved murders in the area? Could he have been someone in a position of authority, explaining how he gained victims' trust? We may never know. But what we do know is this: 6 young lives were stolen. 6 families were shattered. And justice was never served. Carol Spinks, Darlenia Johnson, Brenda Crockett, Nenomoshia Yates, Brenda Woodard, Diane Williams. These names deserve to be remembered. Their stories deserve to be told. And somewhere out there, someone might know what happened. If this case interests you, share it. Keep their memory alive. And never forget, justice delayed is not justice denied.